What does destruction of these ends actually mean? It's August 19th, 2026. Welcome to yes2hellwith.com. In the first video, we asked a question Americans almost never use, and that is, when does government lose its legitimate claim to continue governing in its existing form? The Declaration of Independence gives us the standard when any form of government becomes destructive of these ends. It is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute new government. Those are serious words. So what actually does destructive of these ends mean? Start with the words immediately preceding them. The Declaration says that all men possess certain unalienable rights: life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And then it tells us why government exists. Quote, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. End quote. There is our standard. Government wasn't instituted merely to regulate the people. It wasn't instituted merely to tax them, prosecute, license, fine, or control them. It was instituted to secure their rights. So when the Declaration says government becomes destructive of these ends, the question is whether government has become destructive of the very purpose for which it was created. But understand the threshold. The Declaration does not say abolish government because you disagree with it. It specifically warns that governments long established should not be changed for, quote, light and transient causes, end quote. One bad law, one bad judge, one bad police officer or corrupt politician is not enough. Neither is one unconstitutional act. Those things can happen even within a functioning constitutional system. Why? Because a functioning system should be capable of correcting them. A court stops the unlawful action. A jury refuses to convict. A legislature repeals law. An appellate court reverses the decision. Voters remove the official. A sheriff refuses to participate in unlawful conduct within his authority. The system corrects itself. That's the difference. The real danger begins when the violation is no longer the exception and the failure to correct it becomes the pattern. Suppose government exercises coercive power and cannot demonstrate its authority. Nobody stops it. Government assumes jurisdiction instead of establishing it. Nobody stops it. Government presumes your status, presumes an obligation, takes your property, restricts your liberty, destroys your livelihood, and tells you, challenge us later. So you challenge it, and the agency says, go to court. The court says, exhaust the administrative process. The administrative tribunal says, we don't decide constitutional questions. Your representative says, that's an agency matter. The prosecutor says, that's civil. And while everybody points somewhere else, government keeps enforcing. Now ask the question, what happened to the right? If government can violate the boundary immediately, but the citizen can enforce that boundary only years later, what did the boundary actually protect? Your property may already be gone, your business destroyed, your money seized, and your freedom taken. A right that can only be vindicated after its destruction begins looking less like a protected right and more like a promise. And now we're getting close to what destructive of these ends actually means. But there is another phrase people overlook. The Declaration does not merely say government, it says any form of government. That matters. We cannot simply examine whether an individual official acted unlawfully. We're examining whether the structure of government itself remains capable of protecting the people against unlawful government power. So one question to ask is, can the system still correct government abuse? Can courts, legislators, juries, elections, constitutional officers, and the people still impose meaningful limits when government crosses the line? And most importantly, can government still be required to demonstrate authority, jurisdiction, status, standing, obligation before it resorts to enforcement? Or has the relationship been reversed? Government presumes, acts, and enforces, and the citizen is left trying to prove afterward that the power should never have been exercised in the first place. That is not merely an isolated abuse, that is structural. And the Declaration tells us what evidence to look for. It calls it a long train of abuses and usurpations. A long train, not one incident or administration or political party, but a pattern, persistence, accumulation, evidence. That is why the Liberty Dialogue's response to someone who says our government has become destructive of liberty should never simply be, I agree. The answer should be, show me. Show me the government act. Show me the authority claimed. Show me the actual authority and the constitutional boundary. Show me how it was crossed, and show me the injury. Show me the remedy that was attempted. And then show me what happened when the people sought that remedy. Once, that's an incident. Again, pay attention. Again and again, now document the pattern. Because eventually the question stops being, did government violate someone's rights? And becomes, has government developed a system in which violating those rights can occur repeatedly without meaningful correction? And it protects us from two dangerous conclusions. One is government can do whatever it wants because government said it was lawful. And the other is government should be abolished because I don't like what government did. Neither is acceptable. The Declaration demands something far more disciplined, evidence, because the remedy it describes is extraordinary. Therefore, the justification must be extraordinary as well. Persistent abuse, persistent usurpation, persistent failure of constitutional restraint, and perhaps most importantly, persistent failure of remedy. Because think about what happens when the institution supposedly protecting liberty still exists but no longer stop the violation. The Constitution still exists, the Bill of Rights still exists, the courthouse is still open, Congress still meets, elections occur, officials still swear a constitutional oath, everything looks like constitutional government. But when the citizen asks who will stop government when government crosses the boundary, every institution points somewhere else. At that point, the people have to confront an extraordinarily uncomfortable possibility. The form of government may remain intact while the purpose of government has been destroyed. That is the threshold we are examining. Not anger, not politics or disagreement. A long train of abuses and usurpations coupled with the repeated failure of institutions designed to correct them. Because government was not instituted merely to acknowledge rights. The Declaration says it was instituted to secure them. And if we want to know whether government is still accomplishing that purpose, there is one question we cannot avoid. When government violates your rights, where is the remedy? Not 10 years later, now. Not after your freedom has been taken, now. We need to ask what that right has actually become. And that is where we go next. And as always, may truth reign supreme.